opinions and views of the hosts and guests do not reflect those of the station.
Okay, welcome to this week's episode of Talk News TV here on Global News Network. And wherever you are in the world, you can watch us on TV and also on the internet, gnn-tv.com. No? Well, as we promised for year 2013, we'll be dealing with more and more issues of the young people. Like in our last episode, we had yuppies join us on various issues. Today, we will be discussing the anti-cybercrime law passed by the Senate and now put on hold by the Supreme Court with a TRO, and oral debates are going on. And this is as big, if not a bigger issue than the current imbroglio in the Senate over their money. But we'll discuss that some other episode. But my view there is that as long as money politics continues, the money in the Senate and in the Congress will continue to be a subject for squabble among the parties there. So we'll look into that because we got some requests to discuss the issue. Some people are so hot to discuss that issue. But we should not forget an equally, it may be more important issue, and that is the cybercrime law that puts our cyber freedom or freedom of expression in cyberspace at risk. And if we let it pass without the citizens being aware of the vital issues there, we may be at default in losing our rights and the fruits of the freedom of information and expression that we have today in cyberspace. There's a lot to discuss. In fact, later on, we'll also discuss, right from the legal aspects, the impact if these provisions go unchecked on the cyber community in the country. And maybe we'll touch on also what's going on in the United States with the suicide of Aaron Swartz, which is a, I see Aaron Swartz as the martyr of the cyber spring. As we saw the Arab Spring unfold 2 years ago. But our guests, to help us understand, and especially people of my generation, we just know how to use the internet, but we don't understand how it works. To help us understand the universe of the cyber or the netizens and the legal issues here, we have attorney Marlon, but I think nickname is Marnier. Marner or Marnier? Well, he'll explain to us how the nickname came to be. Tonson, and I was just reviewing his article on in several newspapers the past year. In fact, some of the articles here are since 2012, or this one that I opened is January 13th, just 2 weeks ago. Who's a graduate of UP Law, and we'll ask him how he got interested in cyber law. And we have a game developer who's still waiting for his multi-billion game to, who knows,
maybe.
Alvin Chan with us, a young game developer. So I remember my first game, yung ping pong ba yun? Pong. That was how many years ago? 40 years ago. So let's go first. Let's get an update from Attorney Tonson on what's going on in the Supreme Court in the oral arguments. You are one of the lawyers who helped craft the petition of the Philippine Internet Freedom Association.
Alliance, yes.
Alliance. Okay, go ahead,
yes.
Attorney Thompson.
What happened last Tuesday was that the Office of the Solicitor General filed for a motion to postpone. Apparently, they were asking for more time to answer the points raised by the 5 counsels, 5 lawyers, out of 15 petitions who delivered oral arguments the previous Tuesday. So what happened there was that ideally each side is supposed to be given equal time. So the lawyers for the petitioners, the ones against the cybercrime law, they were given approximately 10 minutes each. Although Attorney Roque was given more time because he was specifically instructed by the Supreme Court not only to discuss the cyber law provision, but also the cyber sex provision, which is something that made our group, PIFA, happy. Because we have, in our alliance, we have feminist groups who are totally against the cybercrime provision on cyber sex, because it is our stand, as we stated in our petition, that the cybercrime law does not distinguish between the victim and the offender. So also there was 4 other lawyers who spoke against it. One of them also, another UP lawyer, UP law professor, Attorney J.J. Decini. Yes. And who gave, actually in our group, he's the most technical savvy of all the lawyers, and he was able to discuss the provision on electronic surveillance, which is something that we also tackled in our petition in PIFA. So the OSG is supposed to be given the same amount of time to address those issues. But the OSG, specifically in its comment answering our petitions, said that they will not defend our opposition to Section 19, which is the takedown clause.
Yes.
So what happened was...
What does the not defend mean? They will not defend against?
Yes.
They will not make an opposition to your opposition?
Yes.
Okay.
And the Supreme Court allowed...
does that mean that should not pass already?
We cannot say, because it's only up to the Supreme Court to decide.
To decide that.
Yes.
But
but
what other implications can I draw as a layman?
Yes.
Okay. Does that mean also that law has to go back to the Congress for revision if I'm correct in my interpretation as a layman?
Actually, that's where our group, PIFA, differs from the other 14 other petitioners.
Yeah.
Because our group wants the total withdrawal of the law.
Okay.
What we want is they have to start all over again.
Okay. Yeah.
Now,
what do the other 14 say?
Well, for instance, Professor J.J. Decini says that only specific provisions need to be taken down. So, but in our view, those are key provisions which will emasculate the law. So it might as well be scrapped and start anew, start fresh.
Okay.
So Section 19, the OSG said they will not defend that. During the oral arguments, the first part, the Supreme Court justices asked 3 times, well, is the Congress going to send somebody to defend Section 19? It was first asked by, I believe, Chief Justice Sereno. Then it was asked by, Justice Abad, who on whose lap this case fell. So
siyang ponente ba ang tawag niyan? Nagiging ponente ba? Hindi.
Technically, he's the assigned ponente.
Okay.
But who the ponente is would depend on how many votes that decision, the written decision gets.
Okay.
So there's still a chance that somebody else would be the ponente. But he's the one in charge.
Okay.
Now what happened was, after these 2 justices asked 3 times, the Office of Solicitor General, they asked, well, is Congress sending a representative to defend Section 19, the takedown clause? And just before the OSC filed their petition to postpone, Congress itself said that they are not going to defend Section 19.
So again, as a layman, my interpretation is it has to go back. How can they,
Well, yes.
I don't know how how they're going to deal with that. But from a practical layman's point of view, I cannot see any other way. Anyway, go ahead. What are the updates? So this week it was postponed for the 29th of January.
Ideally, it should be, but
and this is every Tuesday, supposedly,
yes,
the oral arguments.
The oral arguments. And our problem is that the TRO was given a specific
60 days?
120 days,
120 days,
which is rather unusual because the Supreme Court, when it issues a TRO, is usually until we decide that it's lifted.
Okay.
So with the 120 days falling on February 6th, we are asking, well, we, through Attorney Roque, asked the Supreme Court for an extension. We are still waiting for a decision from the court.
And yeah, as you say, it's not normal that they give such a time frame. Does that indicate some pressure on the part of the government to pass a cyber crime law?
Well, I'm sure that with the Supreme Court, there's the principle of separation of powers.
Yeah.
So if the Aquino administration or the government, the executive branch is trying to use non-legal ways, non-legal arguments, that would be a violation of the separation of powers.
Well,
and I'm sure that the Supreme Court will uphold its independence.
Yeah, well, I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not under threat of suspension or anything, and I can speak my mind about that. I've seen the Supreme Court bow to political pressures throughout the past 30, 40 years of my conscious existence here, from the time of Marcos to the present. They're also humans. Even U.S. Supreme Court bows to political pressure. Those are the realities. Because it really makes me wonder, as you say, why there is a 120-day limit. So there's also pressure by the Supreme Court on itself when they set that time frame. Why is it important for me to speculate on that? Well, I'm wondering if the same pressure on the U.S. Congress on the SOPA and in Europe on the ACTA is also the same pressure being exerted on our political authorities, because the possibility is there. Although I'm intrigued, and before I go to Alvin, maybe you can help me here. I'm intrigued by the pace in which all the cybercrime laws in the West and here in our region is picking up. In the West, they seem to be concerned about intellectual property. That's why SOPA, the Stop Online Piracy Act, which Aaron Swartz opposed and successfully opposed, and maybe have led to his suicide. And then in Europe, it was the ACTA, the I forget the entire meaning of ACTA, but a treaty agreement, anti-copyright, something like that. Anyway, it's about copyright in Europe. But in the Philippines, it's not about intellectual property, but about basically libel that seemed to have come out as the major issue here when it was inserted by Soto. Of course, you highlighted other issues, Cyber 6 and so on. But I think in the press, it was the libel provision that gained prominence. Yeah, go ahead.
It was a really touchy nerve for specifically for media to have the libel provisions strengthened.
Yes, yes.
Well, our take on that is that it's a good thing because it highlighted to the media how this law is what we call constitutionally infirm, which means that basically it violates the rights of citizens. That's what we put in our petition.
Okay. And that's crucial because if this passed and the libel laws are there, it will not only have a chilling effect, but it will freeze internet information and expression for the Filipinos at least and for Philippine media. And I think it smacks of the kind of Senate and Congress that we have, that they inserted such a self-serving provision to protect themselves and not the public's interest in getting information freely and so on. And what if there is libel? If it's a government official, that's part of the territory.
Actually, during the oral arguments, we were all surprised when Justice Peralta, who is an expert in criminal law, raised the point and he was talking then to one of the lawyers who were in the oral arguments, Congressman Neri Colmenares. So Justice Peralta, during his interpellation of Congressman Neri, told him, "Oh, you should tell your friends in Congress that with the libel provision, it not only raises the penalty, the amount of time that you stay in jail, there's an accessory penalty which is attached, which means you cannot run for public office." So, according to Justice Peralta, the problem with that is that if one of your friends in Congress gets filed under this law for libel, he won't be able to run for this election. And for us lawyers, we were both amused and alarmed, but more amused because that's true. So the congressmen put in there a provision that would put them in a delicate situation during the May elections.
Okay. There are crucial issues. The takedown provision, we can discuss a little later. Justice Carpio raised also the question of constitutionality, given that we have ratified or we are signatory to an international convention on internet freedom.
Yes.
So even the justices themselves are raising questions about this. But before we go to our first break, which is 4 minutes from now, let me go to Alvin. Alvin, give me an idea of the impact this has had on the internet community. And how did the PIFA come together, Philippine Internet Freedom Association Alliance? You know each other from the internet mainly? You didn't know each other? Okay, how did that happen?
Well, personally, the impact on us is that we tend to be, because in the community we are very open with each other, so sometimes we tend to limit our posts now because it might have any repercussions to not just our personal being but also our communities involved.
Okay.
But one of the things I've seen the bloggers is that they're saying that it limits the content they can put in the internet. And personally, I think one of the things that's really bad about this is that elections are coming. And people will obviously have opinions on the election.
Yes.
How can they express their opinion with such a provision looming on their heads? They can easily be, though it's unconstitutional because technically we don't have any sovereignty over the internet because
in the country and the political authorities here don't have.
Yes, because as I'm not a lawyer, but I do believe the initial constitutional provision of sovereignty is the physical borders of a country. So, but most data are in servers outside of the country. So this shouldn't have any implications. The takedown clause technically cannot be enforced.
Yeah, cannot be enforced.
But legally, because most people reside here, they can technically still put a case on you. So
And harass you
yes.
or whatever.
So it has its effects, and I think information should be given freely, especially in the internet. It's sort of a great equalizer that can help people communicate and educate other people from being, and it can influence change.
I've experienced so much more freedom, even from my doctors, because I learn about my symptoms from the internet and find my own remedies, and that saves me a lot of money. But anyway, I don't know if this affects that, this cybercrime law discussion. We'll get back to the other issues. There are very many important issues that we still have to clarify legally and with the community. So hang on. We'll be back in a few seconds.